What if I told you one of the cities that built the modern world was once considered one of the worst places to live? Not because it lacked people, not because it lacked opportunity, but because it had too much of both. Too many factories, too much smoke, too much pressure. A place where the sky turned gray before sunrise, where machines never stopped, where entire lives were spent inside walls of iron and noise. And yet, from this chaos, something extraordinary emerged. A system that would reshape the entire world. A city that did not just grow, but multiplied. A city that did not just produce goods, but produced the future. From a forgotten Roman outpost, to the world's first industrial powerhouse, to a modern global hub of culture, technology, and influence. This is not just history. This is evolution under pressure. This is Manchester. Long before Manchester became known for industry, it was defined by geography. Quiet, natural forces shaped the land. Rivers carved pathways through the region, creating connections between areas long before human systems existed. The River Irwell and the River Medlock provided access, movement, and strategic positioning. This land was not empty. It was functional. It was already part of a natural network. When the Romans arrived in Britain during the 1st century, they understood this immediately. They established a fort known as Mamucium, not because it was the most beautiful location, but because it was useful. It allowed control over movement across northern England and connected the region to the wider Roman system. Roads extended outward, linking the fort to other settlements, creating one of the earliest versions of infrastructure in the area. But when the Romans left, the importance of the settlement declined. Without military and administrative support, the area lost its central role. Yet it never disappeared. Small communities remained, and over time, life slowly reorganized itself around local trade, agriculture, and survival. By the medieval period, Manchester had re-emerged as a small but active market town. It was not powerful, it was not wealthy, but it was consistent. Craftsmen worked with wool and textiles, producing goods that were traded across nearby regions. This early connection to textiles may have seemed small at the time, but it would later define the identity of the city in ways no one could have predicted. For centuries, Manchester remained in the background, overshadowed by cities like London. It was not a center of politics or power. It was simply a working town. But what made Manchester different was not what it had. It was where it was, positioned, surrounded by resources, connected by rivers, and located within reach of expanding trade networks. Manchester was quietly building the conditions needed for something much larger. Then the 1700s arrived, and with it came a shift that would change everything. Demand for textiles increased rapidly across Europe. Populations were growing, markets were expanding, and merchants needed faster, more efficient ways to produce goods. Traditional methods were no longer enough, and this pressure created innovation. New machines began transforming production processes. The spinning jenny allowed workers to spin multiple threads at once. The water frame used water power to increase efficiency, and the power loom automated weaving at a scale never seen before. These inventions did not just improve production, they completely redefined it, and Manchester became the place where these changes came together. Factories began appearing across the city, not slowly, but rapidly. Entire districts were transformed as industrial buildings replaced open land. Chimneys rose above rooftops, releasing constant smoke into the air. The sound of machines became part of daily life. Manchester was no longer a town. It was becoming a machine. Workers arrived in large numbers from across Britain and Ireland. Drawn by the promise of employment, the city's population grew at a speed it had never experienced before. Entire neighborhoods were built quickly to accommodate the workforce. But speed came at a cost. Housing was overcrowded, sanitation systems were limited, and living conditions were often difficult. Inside the factories, the environment was even more intense. Workers spent long hours operating machines in noisy and dangerous conditions. Children worked alongside adults, contributing to production at an early age. Wages were low, but the demand for labor remained high because the system depended on constant operation. This was not just growth, this was acceleration. Manchester became known as Cottonopolis, the center of the global cotton industry. Raw cotton arrived from across the world, especially from the United States. It was processed in Manchester's mills and then exported to markets around the globe. This created a powerful economic cycle. Raw materials entered the city, were transformed into finished goods, and then distributed internationally, generating wealth at every stage. For the first time in history, a city was operating at this scale, not just producing for local demand, but for global markets. Manchester was no longer just part of the economy, it was driving it. But with this level of expansion came pressure, social, economic, and political. The gap between wealthy factory owners and working-class laborers became more visible. Conditions inside factories and housing areas created tension, and workers began demanding change. This led to one of the most significant events in the city's history, the Peterloo Massacre in 1819. Thousands of people gathered peacefully to demand political reform and better representation. But the protest ended in violence when cavalry charged into the crowd. This moment exposed the cost of rapid industrial growth. It showed that while the system was producing wealth, it was also creating inequality and unrest. At the same time, infrastructure continued evolving. Canals were built to transport goods more efficiently, connecting Manchester to other industrial regions. These waterways allowed raw materials to move into the city and finished goods to move out faster than before. Then, in 1830, another major breakthrough arrived: the Liverpool and Manchester Railway, one of the first modern railways in the world. This changed everything again. Transportation became faster, more reliable, and more scalable. Goods that once took days to move could now be transported in hours. People could travel quickly between cities, creating new connections and opportunities. Manchester was no longer limited by distance. It was now connected, and connection meant expansion. By the mid-1800s, Manchester had become one of the most important cities in the world. Its influence extended far beyond Britain, shaping industrial practices across Europe and North America. Cities around the world began copying its model: factories, railways, worker housing, industrial systems. Manchester became the blueprint for modern urban development. But even at its peak, the system was already facing future challenges. Dependence on a single industry created vulnerability, and as global competition increased, other regions began developing their own textile industries, reducing Manchester's dominance. As the 1900s approached, the city began entering a new phase, one where adaptation would once again become necessary. As the 19th century continued, Manchester reached a level of industrial power that few cities in history had ever experienced. This was no longer just a center of production. It was the engine of an entire system. The city was connected to global supply chains in ways that defined modern economics. Raw cotton arrived from across the Atlantic, processed in massive mills, and exported worldwide, generating wealth at a scale that transformed not just Manchester, but the British Empire itself. At its peak, Manchester was producing an enormous percentage of the world's cotton textiles. The volume of goods moving through the city was constant. Ships, trains, and canals operated continuously, moving raw materials in and finished products out. This level of activity created a rhythm that defined daily life. Everything revolved around production. Time schedules were built around factory shifts, and the concept of time itself began to change. Minutes and hours became measurable units of output. This was one of the most important transformations in human history. Work was no longer based on natural cycles like daylight or seasons. It was now controlled by machines and systems. Manchester became one of the first places where this shift became visible at scale. But as the system expanded, its weaknesses became more visible. The dependence on cotton created vulnerability, especially because much of the raw material came from the United States. During the American Civil War in the 1860s, the supply of cotton was severely disrupted. This period became known as the Cotton Famine. Mills slowed or stopped, workers lost jobs, and economic pressure spread across the city. This moment tested Manchester's resilience. The city that had grown so rapidly on industrial success now faced the reality of dependence on global supply chains. But even during this crisis, adaptation began. Alternative sources of cotton were explored. Industries diversified slowly, and the city found ways to continue moving forward. By the late 1800s, Manchester had already secured its place as one of the most influential industrial cities in the world. But its role was beginning to evolve beyond production. Education, science, and innovation started playing a larger role. Institutions expanded, attracting thinkers, engineers, and researchers. The city was not just building machines, it was beginning to understand them. The University of Manchester became one of the leading centers for scientific advancement, contributing to discoveries that would shape modern physics, chemistry, and engineering. This shift toward knowledge and research added a new layer to the city's identity. Manchester was no longer just a place of labor, it was becoming a place of ideas. As the 20th century began, the global landscape started changing. Competition increased, other countries industrialized, and Manchester's dominance in textiles gradually declined. The system that had once made it unstoppable was now facing pressure from outside forces. Then came World War I, and Manchester once again adapted. Its factories shifted production to support the war effort, manufacturing equipment, uniforms, and supplies. The city became part of a global conflict, contributing to operations far beyond its borders. After the war, the challenges did not disappear. Economic fluctuations affected industries, and the gradual decline of traditional manufacturing continued. But it was during World War II that Manchester faced one of its most direct threats. The city became a target for bombing due to its industrial importance. Infrastructure, homes, and factories were damaged during air raids. The skyline that had once symbolized industrial power was now marked by destruction. But once again, the pattern repeated. Damage was followed by rebuilding, and rebuilding was followed by adaptation. After World War II, a deeper transformation began. The global economy was shifting, and heavy industry was no longer the dominant force it once was. Factories that had defined Manchester for over a century began closing. Jobs disappeared, and unemployment increased. Communities that had depended on industrial work faced uncertainty. This was not just an economic shift, it was an identity crisis. Manchester had been built on industry, and now that foundation was weakening. For a moment, it seemed like the city might not recover in the same way it had before. But Manchester had already developed something stronger than any single industry. It had developed the ability to adapt. During the mid to late 20th century, the city began restructuring its economy. Instead of relying on manufacturing, it started investing in new sectors: finance, education, media, and services. This transition was not immediate, and it was not easy, but it marked the beginning of a new phase. Urban redevelopment projects began transforming parts of the city. Older industrial areas were repurposed, new infrastructure was introduced, and efforts were made to attract businesses and investment back into the city center. At the same time, cultural identity began playing a larger role. Manchester developed a strong presence in music, art, and sports, becoming known not just for industry, but for creativity and expression. This cultural influence helped redefine how the city was perceived, both nationally and internationally. Then came a defining moment in 1996. A bombing in the city center caused significant damage. Buildings were destroyed, infrastructure was affected, and for a brief moment, the city faced another crisis. But this moment became a turning point. Instead of rebuilding what was lost, Manchester chose to redesign itself entirely. The city center was reconstructed with modern architecture, improved public spaces, and a new urban layout. Investment flowed into development projects, and the transformation was rapid. This was not just recovery. This was reinvention. Manchester was no longer trying to return to its industrial past. It was building a completely new identity. As the 2000s began, the results of this transformation became clear. The city emerged as one of the leading urban centers in the United Kingdom, attracting businesses, students, and tourists. Its economy diversified and its global connections expanded. Media City UK became one of the most important developments in this new era, creating a hub for broadcasting and digital media. Major organizations moved operations to Manchester, bringing jobs, investment, and international attention. This positioned the city as a major player in the media industry. Universities expanded, attracting students from around the world. Research institutions contributed to innovation, and technology companies began establishing a presence. Startups grew, and the city developed a reputation as a center for creativity and entrepreneurship. At the same time, Manchester's cultural influence continued growing. Its music scene gained global recognition, shaping trends and defining generations. Football became one of the most visible symbols of the city. Clubs like Manchester United and Manchester City attracted millions of fans worldwide, turning sport into a powerful economic and cultural force. Infrastructure improvements supported this growth. Transportation systems expanded. New residential developments transformed former industrial areas into modern neighborhoods, and investment reshaped the skyline. The city balanced its industrial past with a forward-looking vision. But as always, new challenges appeared. Global economic shifts, technological changes, and unexpected events continued testing the city's resilience, and once again Manchester adapted. As the 21st century continued, Manchester entered one of the most important phases of its evolution. This was no longer a city trying to recover from its past. This was a city actively defining its future industries that once seemed impossible in a place built on factories were now becoming central to its identity. Technology, media, finance, and education began working together, creating a new type of urban system, one that was not based on physical production, but on ideas, innovation, and connectivity. Media City UK became one of the clearest examples of this transformation. What was once industrial land was turned into a modern media hub, attracting major broadcasting organizations and digital companies. This brought new jobs, new skills, and new global attention to the city. Manchester was no longer just connected to the world through goods. It was now connected through information. At the same time, the university system expanded further, strengthening the city's role as a center for research and knowledge. Students from around the world arrived, bringing diversity and new perspectives. Research institutions pushed boundaries in science, engineering, and technology, creating innovations that extended far beyond the city itself. This shift toward knowledge and creativity allowed Manchester to compete in a global economy that was changing rapidly, while traditional industries declined. The city built new systems that were flexible, adaptable, and future-focused. But what made Manchester different was not just its economy, it was its identity. Culture became one of the most powerful forces shaping the city. Music from Manchester influenced global trends. Artists and bands emerging from the city defined entire generations, creating a cultural legacy that extended far beyond its size. Football became another defining element, not just as a sport, but as a global industry. Clubs like Manchester United and Manchester City transformed into international brands, attracting millions of supporters from every part of the world. Stadiums became more than venues. They became symbols of identity, pride, and global connection. This combination of culture, sport, and innovation created a city that was no longer defined by a single industry. It was defined by diversity of influence. At the same time, infrastructure continued evolving. Transportation networks improved, connecting Manchester to other major cities. High-speed rail developments increased accessibility, and new residential and commercial projects reshaped the urban landscape. Former industrial zones were transformed into modern neighborhoods, combining history with contemporary design. Walk through Manchester today, and you see this contrast clearly. Old brick warehouses stand beside glass towers. Canals run through revitalized districts, and public spaces bring together people from different backgrounds and industries. The city feels layered, each part representing a different phase of its history. But even with all this progress, the story does not move in a straight line. In 2020, the global pandemic reached cities across the world, and Manchester was no exception. Streets that were once filled with movement became quiet. Businesses closed temporarily, and daily routines were disrupted. The system that had been carefully rebuilt over decades faced an unexpected pause. For a moment, it felt familiar. Another challenge, another disruption, another test. But just like every phase before it, adaptation followed. Communities supported each other, businesses adjusted to new conditions, and gradually, activity returned. The city that had been shaped by centuries of pressure once again demonstrated its ability to respond and recover. By 2025, Manchester stands as one of the most important cities in the United Kingdom, not because it dominates a single industry, but because it has built a system that allows it to evolve continuously. Finance, media, education, technology, culture, and sport all operate together, creating a dynamic and resilient economy. Its population reflects global diversity. Its universities attract international talent. Its industries connected to global networks, and its cultural influence continues expanding. But the most important part of Manchester's story is not found in statistics or buildings. It is found in its pattern. Every stage of its history follows the same cycle: pressure, adaptation, growth. From Roman settlement to medieval town, from industrial powerhouse to economic decline, from crisis to reinvention, from local city to global influence. Manchester does not avoid challenges. It transforms through them. That is what makes it different. That is what makes it powerful. Walk through the city today, and you are not just seeing buildings, you are seeing layers of time. Each street, each structure, each district represents a moment where the city had to decide whether to stop or move forward. And every time it chose to move forward, that decision, repeated over centuries, created what Manchester is today. A city built not on comfort, but on effort. Not on stability, but on change. Not on a single success, but on continuous reinvention. From 1624-style beginnings in small settlements, to industrial dominance, to modern global relevance, Manchester has followed a path that reflects something larger than itself. It reflects how cities evolve, how systems adapt, how pressure creates progress. Manchester is not just a place, it is a process. It is a system that turns challenge into opportunity. It is proof that decline does not have to be the end, and that reinvention is always possible. This is not just the story of a city. This is the story of transformation, and it is still being written.